Happy sunny Saturday from My Green Pets. I'm William Green. Welcome, welcome. Gonna have a look around my orchid collection today. Some pretty things happening. And some scary things happening. Well, happened. Alright. Well, it is, as you guys know, Cattleya growing season. They are growing like crazy. New growths everywhere. Start with this Cattleya rex. This was the plant that was submerged completely in hydrogen peroxide for about 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, a couple of months ago, and the plant still seems to be doing okay. It put out some branching roots on this new root here, put out some new roots down here, these big white ones, and new growth continued. Looks pretty normal to me, so far so good on that. I've read a lot about, conflicting reports on hydrogen peroxide is damaging to roots. It may very well be, it may have been, but it doesn't seem to have been too big of a deal. I did rinse the roots very thoroughly after I did that. Some people said you don't have to do that, but I disagree. I don't think that what's in that bottle is just pure hydrogen peroxide. There could be other residues and things, and I think it certainly doesn't hurt to go ahead and rinse the roots off, so I did that. What's funny to me is a lot of these new Cattleya growths, for some reason, what's normally supposed to happen is that as the new leaf matures, the sheath, the leaf sheath, like you can see this black line here, the leaf sheath will split to accommodate the growing leaf, so as the leaf comes out and starts to spread, it just kind of splits that open and is able to push out. But a lot of the leaves actually, the sheaths aren't splitting, and so the leaves are becoming really wrinkled, just like bunched up. Normally this should be split right here, but instead this did not split, and this is really kind of just bunched up. And that's happened with several of them. This happened with this one too. Look at this, how bunched up it is. The back of that should have split, so that's kind of weird. See it on the front here. But yeah, the Cattleyas are just really doing great. The Cattleya rexes. This one I'm super excited about. Check this out. You can see shadow inside the sheath there. And you know what that means? It means flower buds are pushing out, and I would estimate that in about 3 to 4 weeks, this plant will be in bloom. And that is incredibly early for a Cattleya rex to bloom in May. But it started growing in early January, and it has just grown so quickly. So I don't know. I think I'm going to blame it on growing them under lights. Maybe that has had something to do with speeding up the whole growth cycle. But I'm okay with that, except for I'm going to be out of town part of the last part of April, and if it blooms while I'm out of town, I'm going to be really mad. A lot of the rexes are kind of in that intermediate stage where the top of the leaf is pushing out of the leaf sheaths. And some of them are just getting started. You can see back there, that little guy, just kind of pushing out a little bit. And some of them are just now with little nubbins. You can see that little green nubbin down there. So we've got them in all stages, from the very first little nubbins to full sheath, leaf pushing out, everything. Really nice. I do need to talk to you about this plant. This is my Cattleya maxima caerulea, and of course has bloomed for us beautifully in the last summer and last autumn. But last week I showed you that there was a pseudobulb, actually a couple leaves that were turning yellow, and that the base of those bulbs was actually dead. And so I said in last week's video, I'm just going to leave it alone and see what happens. Well, I put it to my Instagram people. I just put up a post with the picture and said, should I leave it alone or should I investigate further? And 83% of people on there said, investigate further. So I said, yeah, I think I'm going to do that. So I got to digging and I found, in fact, and I'll put a picture of it up, that not only was there something that was killing off the stem, the pseudobulb, that the roots had this weird black speckling, and I just kind of pulled that whole part of the plant off, and it actually came apart so easily that I wonder if it wasn't even a totally different plant. I think I've said before that I think this might have been a bunch of little seedlings that kind of grew up together. So I'm actually hoping it was a totally separate plant, because when I cut that plant's rhizome in half, there was a big bright purple band going across there, and most of you know that purple bands inside of rhizomes is not a good thing. It usually indicates fusarium wilt, the fusarium fungus. So I, of course, pulled that off. I used some spectricide fungicide, which I don't know if that's the most effective for fusarium, but I didn't have anything else at the time, so I made a dip of that. I think the active ingredient is mycobutanil is what it's called. Anyway, I made a dip of that. I submerged the whole plant up to probably up to about here in that, soaked it for about 5 minutes or so, took it out, and then I really inspected it, and I've really been looking carefully. On the outside, I don't see any signs of any kind of an infection on this part of the plant, so I'm just going to keep it here and just really keep my eyes on it. I'm actually pretty impressed that the plant has continued to put out roots, even with such rough treatment last weekend. But my eyes will be right here every time I look into the tent to be looking for signs of dead roots, speckled roots, dying pseudobulbs, any kind of things like that. So, and I was also kind of disappointed to, I wanted to share that with you, but I also wanted to caution you, and probably a little bit late at this point, but the first reaction when you see something like that is you just automatically think, oh my god, my entire collection's infected, what am I going to do, you know? And I actually had people contact me and said, as soon as I saw your post, I ran and grabbed one of my Cattleyas and cut it in half, and now I regret it because it's totally fine. So, I'm not here to give you guys recommendations on what you should do, but if I could just make a gentle suggestion that I still firmly believe that wait and see is always the best way to go with orchids, unless something is absolutely wrong. And I tend to think of things in terms of levels of concern. So we could call this the My Green Pets levels of concern. Level 5 is the highest level of concern. That means if you don't do something right now, the plant is going to die, or it's already going to die and you need to remove it so it doesn't infect other plants, right? If I found spreading black rot on a plant, for example, that's level 5. You've got to do something immediately. When you see pseudobulbs dying off like I did, I would say that's more of a level 4, because you don't have to do something immediately, but you better do something soon because your plant's going to be in big trouble. Level 3 is more of a wait and see. You need to be more alert because something could be going wrong. Level 2 is something that might possibly concerning, but again, that's more of a wait and see and probably be okay. Maybe like a spot on a leaf or something like that doesn't seem to be spreading. You know, like I would call that, maybe these spots I could call like a level 2 when I first noticed them, and if they don't spread, then I would kind of say, okay, they're fine, right? And then level 1 is lowest level of concern. So maybe the plant, the roots are coming out of the pot, or it needs to be, it looks like it needs to be repotted or something like that, or that's like low level of concern. Plant's life is not in danger, and your other plants aren't in danger. So that's kind of how I categorize things. So yeah, that fusarium infection was, I would call that a level 4. It had been around for a while, obviously, and I just wonder where it came from. I'm hoping that the plant had it inside it when I got it, but then again, I got it back in February of last year, and I didn't really notice the effects of it until I didn't notice the fusarium until last week, actually maybe a couple weeks ago. So that makes me think maybe it did get it while it was here in the tent. I don't know. So what can I do? All I can do is just keep my eyes peeled for signs of that in other plants. And this, I got to remember too that this whole collection was in a huge commercial greenhouse for 2 years. And if you're gonna pick something up, it's gonna be in that kind of a situation. I mean, there were tens of thousands of plants in there. There were fungal infections, and there were insect pests and snails. There were all kinds of things. And my collection probably picked up a few things. We've got to be honest. So it's just a matter of being vigilant and responding when necessary, and that's all I can possibly do. So I did get some comments on, are you still going to have the auction that you were planning on having now that you've had a plant that's very likely had a case of fusarium in your collection? And I said, I've been thinking about it, and I think I've talked to some different people, and almost unanimously, maybe a couple people disagreed, but for the most part, people have said, you know what, you've been very transparent with what's going on in your collection. We see your plants, we can see the conditions they're growing in, and people are telling me you should go ahead and have the auction, right? People don't want to bid on things, they don't have to. So I'm gonna go ahead and proceed with it. A lot of the plants are looking great. Most of the plants are looking great. Hell, practically all the plants are looking great, right? Even this maxima, after its little bout with whatever that was last week, at this point, it looks good, So, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead with that because I think there are a lot of really good quality plants that people would enjoy that do not have any problems at all. But again, it's up to you what you want to do. Do want to look quickly at the Cattacetum. I've been rattling on for 12 minutes already. This Cattacetum, this is a Cygnus Wine Delight, and the growth is really nice and big on it. The roots have really been reaching deep into the pot, and I looked under the pot, and I thought that I may have seen some new roots pushing against the bottom there. Could be old roots, but definitely some kind of root pushing against. So I thought, you know what? It's at the point where, just to see what happens, I'm just going to give a little bit of water. So I took it to the sink and turned on the sink faucet for like 1 second. 1 second in the front, and then turned it around, 1 second in the back, and that was it. So just get a little bit of water, and I'm just going to see if that does anything. And then maybe next week, I might do the same thing. But for right now, look at that growth. Isn't it beautiful? I mean, it is just as pristine as it gets. This is why you love Cattacetums, right? Because no matter what happened last year, you get to try all over again the following year, and you don't have to suffer the consequences of bad culture. But yeah, lots of new little growths on the Cattacetums. Really excited about these. Really excited. These are all awarded plants, all of them. FCC, AM, HCC. We got a pretty nice Cattacetum collection here. This is the Cattleya gaskeliana that I got from Carter and Holmes a couple weeks ago. It is basically rootless, but I've just kind of got it in a pot here. I put some granite rocks in there to kind of stabilize it, and we're just gonna let it do its thing. I think eventually it'll start pushing roots, and Might wrinkle up a little bit first, but I think it's going to be okay. What I'm really looking at on this guy is, are there any bugs on it? Is there any kind of sign of pest? Because this is how you bring pests in your collection, new plants. And from a major nursery like Carter and Holmes, very reputable. I trust them very highly. But you still got to be careful. You just never know. You never know. The number one thing that I am looking out for is scale. I do not want scale in my collection. It is so hard to eradicate, if not impossible. On that note, I haven't seen any spider mites recently. So, whatever that means. Maybe the predatory mites thing worked. Dendrobium Country Girl is still looking very, very beautiful. Two little bunches of flowers on this guy. And this old growth actually just started pushing something out, and this looks to me like this might not be a flower spike. This looks like it might be a keiki. These dendrobiums are pretty known for making keikis. So that might be a new little plant coming up. We'll see. I'm not fertilizing this at all. I follow Jerry Fisher's advice from his Orchid Web YouTube page. He says he doesn't really fertilize until the flowers are done. So I said, okay, Jerry, good idea. If we go down here, just kind of zoom out a little bit. All of the bulbophyllum divisions, keeping a close eye on them. They're starting to root now, which is great. Hope to have lots of healthy, well-rooted bulbophyllum divisions to put up for auction in a couple months. The paths are the paths. They're doing what they do. I'm hoping that they don't rot. The advice seems to be with the paths, wet medium or damp medium, regular water, but dry leaves. And especially dried down at the base of the leaf, because that's how rot starts. And that is such a hard thing to do, to keep the medium regularly moist, but then keep the leaves, especially the base of the plant, keep that dry. It is so hard. You know, the air does blow down here. You know, there is air circulation, but phew. And then finally, really impressed at these Cattail orchids, Diana Elfridis. I'm gonna keep this one, the one on the right here, the big one. But 1, 2, 3, 4, I am gonna put up for auction. They are so cool, so easy too. I mean, they just in November they go dormant, all the leaves fall off, and they just look like that bulb, just a stick in the dirt, or not in the dirt, and then the medium. And you just put it in a sunny place, you know, and leave it alone. I don't even think it has to be that sunny. I wouldn't put it in the dark, but you know, put it somewhere and just let it sit bone dry, kind of like your catasetums, really. And in the spring, February or so, you start seeing the new little growths pop up, like that. Little purpley new growth at the bottom, and within a month, they are already huge. They grow super fast. And the flower spike comes right out the top of the new growth. So in a couple weeks or so, we should probably start seeing the flower spikes push out. And then they bloom for 4 months. I mean, it's just a continuous, long, stringy flower spike that blooms all the way down the length of the thing for 4 months. These purpley pinkish flowers. So they're cool, they're easy. And this actually came from Carter and Holmes. I visited there in 2015, I think, and Bridget, I think she's the main grower there. She was kind of taking me through the greenhouse, and she just gave me a little piece of it. She's like, "Yeah, these make more themselves really easily. Just, here, take one." And it's like, "Yep, you're right. That one has made all of these in just a few years." So, and I've got a bunch kind of planted in the pot there with it too. Oh yeah, let's check out those roots. It's rooting time. Alright, some bad news. The Phalaenopsaurus, I tried to get it out of the tent and I snapped the spike off, so I just went ahead and cut the thing. I put the spike in flowers. I put the flowers in water. They've lasted about a week and they're already starting to wilt, so Not sure how you get Phalaenopsis flowers to last longer than a week in a vase. Alright guys, I appreciate your tuning into My Green Pets today. And hope you have a great week. Happy spring. And we'll see you next time right here on My Green Pets. I'm William Green. Bye.